Good morning. I'll be with you in a second. So is that. Okay, so I should be coming through on Divergent as well. And then find a Telegram. Doing that now. Testing. Okay, I should be live on all three. Good morning. I hope you're well. Live on all three. Good. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're well. It's Monday the 29th. I see that I haven't streamed since the 25th, which I believe was Thursday. Is that the Thursday EU session? So anyway, I had a little issue this morning getting into and past using the software that streams, but I'm here now. So let's get to it. Let's immediately address the swing trades that I had, because they were initiated earlier this week. You can see how they were initiated on the 25th of September, early in the morning. And I've actually added to the DAX one because it was in profit. You can see here, first I initiated and then I added a couple of hours later. All good. And Friday it was looking good, and then it wasn't looking so good, and I wasn't there to perhaps manage it as actively as I wanted to. So now I need to make a decision, and that's probably where I'm gonna just keep my calm for a little bit. Want to see, do we? I want to have a look at the daily chart and say, okay, if we start trading above, I'll probably use the weekly chart if I'm being completely nocturnal about this. But I'll make a decision on this momentarily, but I am inclined to give it some space, because when you operate with the 72-week cycle, you have to give it plus minus one, and I'm happy to show you what that means right now. Although we do have a first bar negative coming up in about 10 seconds. Just want to see where we close. This is where it's getting a little dangerous, because we are gap up on indices everywhere. I don't know if you can see this, but we are. Obviously because of the positive performance out of the US markets on Friday. And also overnight, you had a largely positive Asian session. Just wanted to actually, Asia was a really mixed picture. You had Nikkei being down, and you had Australia up, India down, Hang Seng up, Shanghai up. So that's rather inconclusive. So we got a first bar negative in the FTSE. What that means is that the first 5-minute bar, is a negative bar. If you followed that strategy last week, you would have been happy. I don't know if you saw it on Thursday. I'll show you Thursday. So here's Friday, first bar negative, and bang, you nailed the low of the day. Thursday, very good, went 10 points against you, and then rally. What's interesting about the DAX is that the overnight range top was breached just before market, and now we're headed lower. So let's see if I'm gonna be given an opportunity for a fill in the FTSE. The low currently is 93.12. Sorry, rubbish. 93.06. We're currently trading at 10. And all those positive vibes out of the DAX are actually disappearing, and well, my P&L is still struggling, but it's certainly looking a little better than it was when I posted a screenshot in Telegram. At that point I was losing £1,000. Now I am losing 750. It's an improvement. If you're asking me how it went in Frankfurt, I'm going to say not very well. Not very well at all. So the DAX is currently trading at 23,780. So we are just slightly above where we were on Friday, where we closed. So let me show you. Let me show you the DAX. Notice how it came up to this, the highs of, actually it went as high as 23,877. So by my reckoning, what it did was it just went above the highs from the 15th of September. So that's what it looks like. And then we're currently here. Okay, well that's reassuring to know, because then it suggests that we are witnessing overhead resistance around 23,900. That's probably where I would place my stop loss. So if we trade back up here again, my swing is just going to be nil and void. Let me show you the counter, knowing that we are now in a new week. And I include one. And then that should point to this high here. And you can see that it is 72 weeks from that arrow to last week. So with a bit of luck, this high here and this count will work. The problem that I have with this high here is that it's a high, but it's not an overly significant high. Sure, it's a double top and it holds the market back for, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It just holds it back for about 7 weeks and then it resumes. So I'm not so sure that I would have preferred it if it was something like this down here. FTSE had a first bar negative but never gave a buy signal. That unfortunately also happens. And the DAX is coming down to the overnight range low. So now I'm going to have to wait. So that's the point where I'm going to find it interesting to see how we're basically realigning ourselves with the overnight range low. Had a low at 72.8 and the lowest I got here is 70. So for all intents and purposes, as I see it, what's the saying? Close is close enough. We have traveled outside of the overnight range and now we are back inside the overnight range. Maybe we're gonna get a test below. We are quite close to the close on Friday. I think if we had been this high and we aren't able to build on that rally, that doesn't bode so well for the bull story. So that's the point now where I'll be looking at the 5-minute chart. And if nothing shows up in the next 20 minutes, then it will be a school run, plain school run. So now we're looking at a 5-minute chart and I'll be looking for, is 3 able to trade above 2? And considering that 1 and 2 are bear bars, then I would normally like to sell short. The caveat here, and there's always a caveat in technical analysis, always, is but you just hit the overnight range low. So maybe you need to give it a little bit more time before you initiate a short. So I attempted to be funny over the weekend. One was a joke about, what's it like to be in a job interview and can you perform under pressure? And then I said no, but I do a mean rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody. So Under Pressure is a Queen song, as is Bohemian Rhapsody, and I just thought that was funny. But clearly there was a few that didn't quite get that. Fair enough. Then there was the colorblind joke. I actually had people reach out to me saying that, expressing sadness that I was colorblind, and of course I had to explain. Well, that's also a joke. The expression is it came out of the blue, which I think is a reference to that a lightning strikes on a clear blue sky day. And instead of writing, saying, I just found out I'm colorblind, it came out of the blue, this news came out of the blue. Because I'm colorblind and I can't see blue, then I wrote, this news came out of the purple. And again, I was thinking I'm being really funny, not really realizing that perhaps there were people who didn't get my admittedly rather plain vanilla sense of humor or lack of, and they thought that I was actually colorblind. And of course I had to express to them that I was very, very happy that they expressed concern for my well-being. But in fact, I was just trying to be funny. So there, not a good moment in a comedian's history when he actually has to explain the jokes, and I suppose I should just take away from that I'm not funny at all. Which is fine. You know, I accept that. But just don't come begging for me for one of those non-jokes, okay? If you're sat there thinking, oh, why didn't we buy the FTSE? Well, you're entitled to. Of course you are. However, a setup is a setup. And I don't just invent new rules halfway into the game. It's just not what you do. Now, here's an interesting conversation because we got a strong FTSE, but a weak DAX. So, technically, and this was something that we discussed, or I discussed at the talk on Friday in Frankfurt at the annual Technical Analysis Associations, etc., etc. What I discussed was that the common human behavior would be, right, let's short the FTSE because it's overbought, and let's buy the DAX because it's oversold. And that's something that when I worked in the brokerage industry, in the CFD brokerage industry, that was something that you frequently saw. So people would buy the DAX and they would sell short the FTSE. But in reality, how you really should be thinking is, wow, the DAX is weak. Let's sell it short because it's probably going to get weaker. Wow, the FTSE is strong. Let's keep buying it. It's probably going to carry on being strong. I think the best way I could describe it is you're watching a football team and Manchester United is playing, I don't know, buttfuck nowhere, and Manchester United is winning 4-0. Are you going to start betting on Manchester losing? Probably not. I know that's a rather simplified version, and the markets are much more nuanced. But yeah, I operate from this principle that if a trend is in motion, it tends to stay in motion. So for that reason, we should go short the DAX in £5,000 a point, and we should buy the FTSE in £5,000 a point, and then we should see where we are in 5 minutes. Or what we could do as a humorous, we could go 0.5. Actually, that doesn't quite work like for like, does it? Because the FTSE is about, the DAX is about a time and a half bigger. So what would that be? So we have 1.5. Or maybe I should stop trading for entertainment and actually trade for making money. It was just a point I wanted to make. TD actually has an instrument called the differential instrument. So we can follow that here. Where you take the Germany 40 versus, minus the UK 100. Good instrument to trade, by the way. and a very reasonable spread. This is the Nikkei. If you're an Asian trader, I would seriously encourage you to look at the Nikkei and use it for the school run. Alright, so let's look at the FTSE on a cash only chart. Okay, that is the same problem as I had. That is strange. There's a gap in the data. 93.35 is where we are. Which is there. So you can see how the FTSE is bumping ahead up against where we traded in mid-September on the 12th, but had a high of 93.40, and today's high is 93.36. But overall, seemingly a very strong FTSE. While the DAX is struggling today. Here's a daily chart of the FTSE coming up to overhead resistance. Will I short it? That would be conventional support and resistance trading. Nothing wrong with it. But in bull markets, resistance tends to get taken up. So I wouldn't be in a rush. We'll focus on the DAX. 1 sec. We got 1 minute or less before the second 15-minute candle has completed. I'd like to speak with you right now. Say that this was how it closed in 30 seconds. What would I do? Okay. I'm in doubt, and that's fine. I don't want to proclaim to know it all. We have a first bar negative and a second bar positive. If we close near the high of the second bar, that would indicate buying strength, and I would want to be a buyer. Problem is that we are inside the overnight range. Another problem that I have is that we travel from the top of the range down to the low end of the range, and that's where we stopped. So now, technically, bar number 3 unfolding now should say, oh, we want to be long above. To see how my software posts now, long above. However, because this takes place inside the overnight range, I have to quickly make up my mind saying, right, do I want to sell the ante, meaning I'm selling short here because we are inside the overnight range, or do I simply just go with momentum and buying long? That is the issue I have right now. And looking at this structure here and how the FTSE is trading, I'm thinking, right, I'd like to see it trade up to 818.6, currently trading at 803. The high is 818.6. That's the trigger long for the school run here. So let me show you here to see how it says 23,818. Wonder if I can change these colors. No, okay, doesn't matter. There it is. I would perhaps be more comfortable with a short below 1, but even so, that is also at the low end of the overnight range, meaning, do I think we're going to get a trend day in the DAX lower? Well, look, anything can happen, but it's hard to imagine with the FTSE as strong as it is. They do tend to move at least in part in unison. So yeah, it's going to be a challenging decision to make, but hey, it's not like we haven't been here before many times. And the fact that bar number 2 itself is an inside bar of bar number 1, and right now bar number 3 is trading inside the confines of bar number 2, well, that just tells you, well, the market is in doubt as well. you know, you look at the last trading day, you had a positive bar, then another positive bar that traded well above the highs of the first positive bar, and then you build on that momentum. But anyway, so buyer or seller beware here, that's for sure. Of course, you don't make money from talking a good game, you actually need to trade it. So we're coming down to a trigger, and I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to be a buyer here. So I'm actually buying a test of the lows. $23,764.3. 23,694.3. It's my stop loss. I posted this in Telegram. And let me show you what it looks like on my trading account. There you go. It's up here. There, by £8 a point. And well, look, I don't want to be a smartass and proclaiming to know exactly what's going to happen. I'm simply just trying to explain the price action, going, right, we got a negative bar, but it tested the low end of the range. Now we also have a second bar, which is an inside by the first. Are we just going to test this area and then going to go back into the trading range? Or are we actually going to have a blowout lower? None of which I can answer. All I can do is I can say, okay, I can try and trade it with some coherence. And that's what I've done by being a buyer below the overnight range. Of course, I can be smart about it and try and move my stop loss up as quickly as possible and say, look, do we really need to have a stop loss 70 points away? Probably not. What could we do? Well, we could relatively quickly move the stop loss up. So right now we are 12 points in profit. So we could say, okay, let's move the stop loss up to 17 points away. We're 12 points in profit. We are 17 points stop loss. So at this point, the DAX would then have to reverse 30 points from its current. Will it do that? Well, who knows? But that's what we have decided to do. So moving stop loss to 23,746. Just thinking here on the spot, trying to protect my position. There was just 16 points in profit there. It's too soon to move stop loss to break even, I feel. But I can move my stop loss up a little bit more, and I can just say, look, I'm going to move my stop loss to just below the low of bar number 3. That means I put my stop loss my stop loss is currently at 23,756, and the lower bar number 3 is 23,758. So if I get stopped out, it would be because there's a retest of the low of bar number 3. And then that means that I would have, my risk is currently 8 points. So, okay, fine. If I get stopped out, it's because the DAX has decided to retest the low now on a 5-minute bar, has decided to retest the low of bar number 7. So let me show you here. That's a bit better. So there you see it better. Bar number 7 has a low of 58. I have now put my stop loss at 56. I'm currently 11 points in profit, as you can see. Now it's just a question of will this test attract buyers, or do we need to come back down again to 58? Either way, I have no insight into. I don't have a crystal ball. all I have is my ability to manage my position, manage my emotion, and try and do that with some emotional coherence. And now thinking ahead, going, right, if this does work, as you see there for a second there, we were 18 points in profit. If this does work, where would I add to the position? And of course, I wouldn't add to the position until I was able to get that stop loss a bit closer, because this isn't a momentum move, ladies and gentlemen. That's really important distinction here. We are not in a momentum market. How can I tell that? Well, first of all, because we're trading inside the overnight range. We managed to trade a little bit above it. We managed to trade a little bit below it. Have you ever heard David Paul, our beloved David Paul, who's sadly no longer with us? God rest in peace, man. I miss you so much. Do you ever hear him talk about a trading day called wash and rinse? A wash and rinse is basically you take out the high of the overnight range and you get back into the range. Then you take out the low of the overnight range and you get back into the range. And it's just the range traders that are essentially just washing and rinsing you. Look at that FTSE to go, huh? Woof. Would have been nice to be part of that. So we're coming up to 46. I want to show you on a where that is on a daily chart. So 46 is there. So that's where we are. We're just coming up. The old high was 57. And as I said, not shorting the FTSE, because in bull markets, overhead resistance gets taken out. In bear markets, support gets taken out. So, not a bad mantra to have, a rough mantra. Okay, so we are 20 points in profit. So I suggest that, excuse me, I suggest that the stop loss with some reasonable logic could be moved to break even now. So stop loss to break even. Voila. So I'm just going to post that in Telegram. So now we got a trade that cannot lose us money. What's the next thing we're going to do? We're going to think, well, would be nice to add to this position. Does it bother me that the FTSE didn't give me a first bar negative buy signal? Well, yeah, I'd like to admit that just makes me human, doesn't it? That would have been nice. Nice that you could have moved 2 points lower, and then I would have been there. In fact, 1.5 points would have done, and we would have been in. Anyway, it wasn't to be. Somebody bought it, but it wasn't me. Instead, I'm stuck in this DAX here. Excuse me. Well, so we got 40 points in profit in the DAX. But let's look at it pragmatically. We've got a failed normal school run. We did the explained why. My suggestion would be, right, if we can get above 23,818, we could have an add-on. I would be comfortable buying above 818. I'm not overly aggressive this morning. Allow me to explain to you why I'm not aggressive. I think being aggressive is very much a function of how you feel physically, mentally. And I don't feel so great this morning. I have a tremendous amount of shoulder pain. And because of my aversion to painkillers, yeah, really smart when you're in pain, but there you go. I'm sort of sucking it up. Does mean though that sleep becomes somewhat labored, and so I felt fine enough to trade. And you can hear my voice; I'm quite with it, but I'm not. I'm down with the plain vanilla trades, and interpreting the price action, but I'm not overly feeling like being aggressive. I love to add to my winning trade, but I have to feel strong in that moment going, yeah, oh man, this is going back up to 850. I'm going to pounce it for all it's worth. That kind of setup. Having said that, a setup like this could tempt me to be a buyer in the DAX again. But look at the 5-minute chart. Look at 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3. We bought down at the 7 low. We did that in the context of the overnight range. Nobody is going to fault us for that trade. That was a decent entry. We're given with a hindsight of a couple of candles now. But what you should notice immediately, damn frog in my throat. What you should notice immediately is that we are inside a trading range. We're still stuck in a range, and we are not out of the woods on this position. This could go either way. And if I do get stopped out, I'm probably just gonna go, right, wasn't my morning. I'm gonna leave early, and then we will see each other for the US session. But if, on the other hand, we're gonna see this market moves above 23.18 again, that's when I would be comfortable pushing it, hoping that we're going to see 850 or more. So that's how I feel this morning. So we were significantly better place just moments ago, and now we're coming down to test my entry, and that doesn't look very good. In fact, I'm pretty certain we're going to get stopped out. And we did. Wow. It's not often you have a 40-point profit and you get stopped out for nothing, huh? Stopped out for 0. So what does that tell us? Well, as I just said, I'm more inclined to just leave it like this for the morning. Yeah, it's a bit annoying that you have 40 points in profit and you don't get anything out of it. Normally when you see a pattern like this, what we just saw here, where you see a bounce, this means that this market actually should go lower. Oh, should I? I think I should. I'm shorting the DAX at 760 on a traditional school run short. Now, $23 760.4 short. Oops, hit that button before I could complete the 23. I'm gonna have a stop loss at 820. So the transaction history show that I lost 0, and I am now short on a flip the switch. After I just said, don't feel so aggressive, but all of a sudden my juices got flowing a little bit. Wow, are we actually breaking lower here? Or are we going to fill the gap? On a 5-minute chart, all we've done is tested the lows. Now it's a question of, can it break lower? And I've entered a short position. My stop loss is currently up here. Much depends on how 10, this is bar 10, how 10 closes. Just looking at the FTSE is just pulling back a little bit. It went as high as 53. I'll show you 53 on the chart. See how the old high is 57. So we just went up and double topped right there. This is the weekly chart. It's a guy called Flavian. He told me that he took profit at the highs. You have my utmost respect, sir. Can you please manage my money? Well done, mate. Well done. That's strong trading. Guy called Kakla saying, how can you be short? How do you manage the different sides? Long on a swing, short on a swing, on a long on a day trade. I'm not actually. I just use different instruments, and I don't have an issue with that at all. That's just all right, fine. So I operate 2 different time frames here, and so I'm short. I was long intraday, but short overnight. Yeah, I'm relatively okay with that. One technique I think I will deploy in this case here, because I don't want to risk that much, is you notice how the current DAX 15-minute high is 23,777. If we begin to trade above 23,777, the odds of a successful short will significantly diminish, and you can see that's actually already happening now. So what we've done here is we've gone below the overnight range. We've also gone below 3, and now we're trading back into the range. Now we got 8 minutes left of this. I'm currently losing 20 points, but already my gut feel says if this was a breakdown, we would have broken down now. We wouldn't have traded back into the trading range. So the current high is 81, and my stop loss is at 820. I think I'm going to move my stop loss to 95, 96. That's what I'm prepared to risk on this. So that would be 36 points. I'm looking at a 10-minute chart in the FTSE, and I'm wondering if there's going to be buyers below 5, bar 5. Now, talking about being aggressive, maybe my adrenaline is kicking in a little bit, but having been underwater now, if the DAX was then to trade back down to my entry price at 760, I would begin to add to it, because then that would suggest to me that we are headed lower. So let's keep an eye on that. I'll try and make this as clear as possible. There is a target at 740, but I don't like trading with targets. I want to see what the market gives me, and I want to read the price action. That was another thing that I just felt immediately out of sorts at the technical analysis conference in Frankfurt on Friday. Lovely people, but it was clear to me that they were investors, not traders. And you know, each to their own. It's just that you're comparing, when you compare two different time frames, you're also comparing two different philosophies of trading, and instruments that you use don't necessarily go well together. So my position is actually in profit now. I'm not going to add just because I'm at 1 point in profit, but I think I am expecting this market to push lower, and I want to add to it again. I'm just keeping an eye on the FTSE as well. Look for signs that it is breaking lower, but it isn't. Not yet. Okay, this is brilliant in the DAX. So you see that I'm going to show you the 10-minute chart of the DAX. So the 10-minute chart of the DAX is currently having a high at 81. I'm going to move my stop loss just to above 81. So it's about there. So now my stop loss is at 785. And we're coming down to the close the gap. I wonder if I could show you that on the, where is the DAX from? There's the DAX. So the gap close is at 740. You see that on Friday? And that's where we are now. Let me just show you. So we basically closed the gap here. We went 41. Do you see that? Is that all we're going to get? Or are we going to get a proper breakdown? I'm adding to my DAX here at 50. So sold short more at 50. Let me show you my account. So I got 2 open positions now, double up, 200% short. Average price 55. FTSE is not doing anything still. DAX is now breaking lower. Good. It's good for us. There's always something to be concerned about. My concern here is that we just hit the closing price. So I think I'm going to close my position. Okay, that doesn't work. closed, and closed. So I've taken profit with a gap fill in the DAX. Let me show you my account transaction history. So there you go. Closed at around 42. So there you go. That's me done, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that this was a lesson that was worth tuning into. I'm going to take a screenshot of this, as I always do, for transparency. Those are the trades. And then I'm going to wish you a... By the way, can I just ask you for a favor? Before you log out of a screen, always go to opening orders. Just go in there as a happy going. Have I left anything in there? It's just a word to the wise, you know. I'm going to keep my my short swings, because the way that the DAX is behaving is like, yeah, you know what, it's good. But I took profit here on a gap fill. I'm actually happy with this trading session. I think that it had it all. We had a long, we flipped the switch, and it was thoroughly explained. Is the right thing to take profit on now? Who knows, but I'm quite happy to leave it at this. I have a lot of preparation. I have a hell of a long flight to Orlando. It's like 15 hours of flying time for me. It's like, which I'm doing later this week. So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's a darn pleasure to be able to be with you. I just wish you understood my jokes better than you do. But maybe the problem is, if the common denominator, I think it's me. So there's a good chance I'm the problem. Love you lots. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to share trades with you. It's good education for all of us, and it upholds good practices on my part, and then it makes money. That's great as well. Love you lots. You take care of yourself, and I'll see you later, okay? Bye-bye for now.